So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start to introduce our speakers, our panelists are awesome. And it wasn't on tension, an intentional thing, but women are awesome. And so, I have some phenomenal women I'm going to introduce to you. First, we have Margie Manning. She started her journalism career as a radio news reporter in St. Louis before putting down the microphone and picking up the pen for the St. Louis Business Journal. She was unable to resist the warm weather. She became an entrepreneur and she ran her own ice cream shop. Oh, that sounds good right now. Before joining the Catalyst, Margie spent 14 years at the Tampa Bay Business Journal, where she wrote about business successes and failures in the exciting world of innovation and startups. So everybody put some hand claps in the chat for Margie.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to bring up Diane Egner. She is the 83 Degrees media publisher and managing editor. She's an award-winning journalist with almost 4 decades of experience in reporting about the Tampa Bay area. She's a member of the Leadership Florida and the Athena Society, and she serves on the board for the Institute of Research and Art and USF's Public Art Program. Additionally, she has also received special recognition from the Tampa Bay Association of Black Journalists for her creative work as content director at WUSF Public Media. So let's throw some hand claps up for Diane. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So next we have Lauren Coffey. She is a reporter at the Tampa Bay INO and the Tampa Bay Business Journal, where she covers technology, entrepreneurs, innovation, and education for the Tampa Bay Business Journal. She also covers things on startups and innovation for the online website and the I Know newsletter, which goes out twice a week. I don't know if you guys are getting it, but you should be. Let's give it up for Lauren.
Hello.
All right. And last but not least, I'm going to be turning this over to Kenya Woodard, who's going to be our moderator for today's discussion. Kenya is a freelance journalist and media host, and she is the CEO of Sigma 7 Communications in Tampa. She covers public affairs and current events, and she's written for the Tampa Bay Times, the Florida Sentinel, Palm Beach Post, and many others. Currently, she is a host for Mocha Morning Show, a digital lifestyle series for people of color and urban lifestyle enthusiasts. So let's give it up for Kenya.
Woo! Hi, everyone.
I'm taking it a step back, so let's go, Kenya.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ebony. Wow, what a great panel we've got here. I'm so excited to see you all and anxious to get started. So let's dive right on in. I'm thinking that, because of the current climate in terms of, COVID is still here with us. People are still trying to adjust, how to navigate, this current situation. So let me start with asking, first of all, your outlet, what it covers, and then how COVID has affected the stories that you're telling. Diane, can we start with you?
Sure. Well, 83 Degrees Media is an online publication serving the Tampa Bay area by telling the stories of local talent, innovation, diversity, and environment, what we call our TIDE model for content since 2009. We offer storytelling on important issues, things like healthcare and education, development news, access to the arts, environmental solutions and successes. What really sets us apart from more traditional media is that we're very intentional in approaching stories through a solutions journalism lens aimed at highlighting the people, projects, and programs that are moving our community forward. As far as how COVID has affected us, it means that we're sending our photographer out a whole lot less. We're encouraging our reporters to reach people by telephone, by email. That can be tricky sometimes. People aren't necessarily in their offices or at their homes the way they once were, easily accessible. So we're doing a lot of sort of extra layer of work to actually get people to respond sometimes. We've shifted our focus a little bit more onto COVID, and particularly looking at solutions out there for getting back, rebounding, recovery, things that are working, as well as ideas that are being tried out there.
Awesome. Lauren, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been covered what I do pretty well, but I cover tech and startups for both Tampa Bay Inno and then the Business Journal. So kind of earlier stage and then also the later stage, really big guys in the region. But coronavirus for us has just made everything a lot busier. And so it was not really a slowdown at all. You think it would be, but there is more news than ever and more stories to tell than ever. Like Diane said, it is all on the phone now, and through email and through Zoom. So it's a little different because that's all about like building relationships. But yeah, just really, really busy. And it's helpful to see that there's not a slowdown in Tampa Bay tech at all. And like, it's just full speed ahead.
Wow. Margie?
Well, thank you. St. Pete Catalyst is also an online news platform. We're a little over 2 years old, and we cover business news throughout the Tampa Bay area, but we do have a focus on St. Petersburg because that's in our name, St. Pete. We cover business news. We also have expanded into covering government, civic, and we have very strong arts coverage in St. Petersburg. We have a really heavy focus on technology companies when we're covering business news, both startups and established companies. And we actually have a special section of our platform that's called Venture that highlights startups. So I agree, COVID has changed the way we cover everything. At the outset of the pandemic, it was almost like a fire hose of news. There was so much to report on, and there still is quite a bit to report on. So we're kind of looking for the stories about how a company might have responded to the pandemic. For instance, KnowBe4, a big cybersecurity company in Clearwater, sent all their workers home to work from home virtually overnight. They got them ready to do that. Or, how co-working spaces have kind of adapted their physical setup and their sanitation procedures. We're talking about stories about how companies can capitalize on the changes. Maybe a company like Omnivore, which has a platform for payment technology, has really been able to raise money because all of a sudden restaurants need to do a lot of takeout and delivery. Or it could be about a company that's giving back, like a company in St. Pete called Given, which has a platform to help nonprofits collect donations. So they made their technology free for nonprofits right now. So those are the kinds of things we've been doing. In terms of everything's been online, over the phone, email, but I have noticed lately people are starting to schedule a couple of cautious in-person meetings, which is a little bit of a change in the past few weeks.
Yeah, lots of folks are trying to slowly but surely get back into the pre-COVID routine, slowly but surely. Let's talk about how you're generating news for your sites. People can submit stories to your outlet, or are they assigned? Can you talk about that?
Sure, we do
Diane?
a blend of that. Some come from our writers themselves. Some come from things I hear about or particularly see in social media, just trolling social media. Groups and organizations that have a particular focus, and we get we're a blizzard of public relations kind of PR releases. So it's all of those things. It depends some, frankly, on sort of balancing what we have on any given week. So we may have a story about tech, a story about the arts, and a story about healthcare, or something like that, balancing the subjects. So we're not doing everything all at once. And it depends on personnel who's available. I work with a team of about 15 freelance writers. They are juggling other assignments from other jobs they have as well. So sometimes I can't get somebody immediately onto a story, but what we try to do then is take a deeper dive into the story or look at a broader perspective or find another way to approach it other than just, we don't excel at breaking news and we don't even try. So we think the Catalyst and both do a great job of that. So what we're trying to do is offer an alternative.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
a mix of
Lauren, how about you?
Assigning us stuff or saying like, hey, have you looked into this? And then also just people reaching out to me or me kind of just thinking about other things that are going on and seeing trends nationally, and maybe we can localize them here. So my favorite is when people reach out to me personally and just let me know what's going on with their company, or even if they've heard just a little something in the air. And then we can look further into that. It's always better than just, here's a press release, although we do appreciate and take those as well. So it's definitely a mix though.
Well, we have a very small
Margie?
staff. We only have 2 full-time business writers and a full-time arts writer and editor. So really, we don't have such a thing as an assignment desk. Every reporter is kind of responsible for generating their own ideas for news stories and filling them out. So I really appreciate it when people reach out to me through email or a phone call. And we also do have a general email box where people can email the Catalyst with a story idea, and it will eventually make its way to me, perhaps. But really, direct outreach is the most effective way to get me. Also, one thing that's unique about Catalyst is we have a place where anybody can submit their own content. It's at the top of our homepage, and a button that says connect and contribute content. And if you could contribute that content, we'll review it. And if there really is a news story there, it'll make its way to one of our reporters.
Now let's talk about, so that initial contact. What are you looking for in that email? What's the information that's necessary for, that email to go from to, hey, let me follow up with a phone call or a response?
Sometimes it's just a matter of pitching something that's new and different and unique. I kind of try to ask the question to filter some of them out, is like, what is this solving in our community? If it's just another version of 15 other things that exist out there, I think it's less of a story than if it's something that really is innovative and is taking a new approach or tackling a new issue within our community. That's probably my number one filter.
Lauren, are you looking for any particular or specific bits of information in that
like
email?
We said, like, we're all busy in the startup and entrepreneur and tech world's even busier than we are. And so I think just getting to the facts as soon as possible. So like, where is this happening? What time, what date? Please give advance notice of a big event is happening, for example, you want us to cover. Don't tell us like the day before, because oftentimes we do plan out more further in advance. Tell me a month in advance. Like, I'll put it in my calendar and we'll be good to go. Kind of where it falls in the scheme of things. So like, if you're getting a donation, for example, is it the biggest donation you've gotten? Is it, one of just the typical ones? Who are you working with? All just the facts you would tell someone over like a cup of coffee. Just tell us in a succinct manner versus this long backstory, I guess, that no one really has time to read or write.
Mm-hmm. Quick, succinct, to the point. But Margie, doesn't it start with the subject line?
Very helpful. I was going to say that it seems really obvious, but you would not believe how many press releases I get where I have to read through everything before I figure out what the news is. Put that in the subject line. XYZ company hires new CEO. XYZ company raises $3 million. Just make it big, bold, and right in my face so I get it, and I'm going to pay attention to it and not move on to the next email. Don't try and be cute or mysterious. I actually got an email from somebody a while back who said, would you like to meet a local inventor who created a digital platform that can help companies grow? I can't tell you how fast I moved past that one. Though it turned out to be a good story because she did follow up with something more specific. And also,
the follow-up is really important. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But let me ask, is it more important for a company to have a public press kit or an online media room? The latter may be a little new for some folks, but let me ask, which do you prefer?
Either one works for me. I'm online, feels like some days 24/7. So a quick link to the pertinent information is probably the best. And make sure, as others have mentioned, that the information's succinct. It doesn't have to be in a story narrative. We're the storytellers. Just give me the facts, give me a list, and we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, Lauren, online newsroom or
I don't really care, honestly. Like, as long as you give me
matter?
pictures in a timely manner, that's the biggest thing I've noticed is like, we have to have pictures to accompany our stories. And sometimes they are kind of like, please send a picture of your building, but it is better than like just some stock photo. Like people will click on it more. And that I've noticed takes a little time. And then just having like if you do have a press person, have that email on your website somewhere. I can't tell you like the amount of time I've spent looking to just email someone to ask, and I have to call their main line to be transferred like 10 different ways. So just have that information like on your website available, ready to go. And that really helps.
I would much prefer,
Margie,
yes,
do you have
I would much prefer that when you send the press release, go ahead and send a picture or two as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to, I don't have to email you back and say, send me a picture. And a headshot is fine of a person, but if you can get a picture of that person kind of in action in a team meeting or meeting with a client or something like that, it is so much more interesting. And I'd much rather have that. Even if they're standing in front of the building, it's better than just a headshot.
I agree with all that. I would also just remind people that a high resolution image.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, something with some context, right?
Yeah, otherwise we're going to be asking you to resend it, which is a pain for both of us.
Right, or a screenshot of their website.
Yeah, I've had instances where folks sent me pictures and PDFs. That doesn't help me. So, yeah, high resolution, please. Exactly. Yeah. So let me ask, there's been so many changes in newsrooms over the last, few years even. And it makes it hard to kind of keep up with all of the journalists, that are coming in and out of staffs, and then also staff is overwhelmed. Newsrooms aren't as fully staffed as they used to be. So everyone's doing, 5 or 6 different beats. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but maybe not. Let me ask, is getting a story
I think at its
published
base,
still
yes,
about
as much
the
as you
personal
can build
relationship
relationships with journalists, especially before you need them, so that when they know who you are, when you do reach out to them, is very helpful. But that said, cold calling is certainly acceptable. We do it both ways. Hear about something and call up and say, hey, saw this on Instagram. What is it that you're doing? Whatever. So whatever is most convenient for the source, for the person calling to try to get some attention, works for me.
Yeah, I don't know if a relationship is like an end-all be-all to get news. If you have news that I've never met you, I'll publish it.
Okay.
Like, it's not like I need to have had coffee with you beforehand. It definitely does help, though, just to have a previous relationship. And then once you do write one story, please follow up. I know we touched on that a little bit earlier, but with future things, like don't let it be a one-and-done thing. Even if it's like inconsequential stuff, just email me and let me know, and just keep that relationship going. But I mean, yeah, don't feel like afraid to reach out if you never talked to us before. That's how a relationship starts.
I have my trusted PR people and news sources who I know when they're calling me, it's going to be a good story.
Mm-hmm.
But I really love meeting new people. That's what keeps our content fresh. I don't want to write about the same half dozen companies over and over again. So I really welcome people to reach out, even if we've never met before. Just reach out. I don't bite. When you do reach out, though, ask if it's a good time to talk. And if this isn't a good time, let's set up a time when we can talk and I can really focus on what you're saying.
Yeah, let me ask, what's the preference? Some editors are, adamant, email only, please. Not because they don't like to talk on the phone, but it gives them a reference, something to go back to. There's something
I like an email with follow-up phone call.
So let me poll you, ladies.
Same here.
What's your preference?
Prefer an email, phone, at least initially,
both?
And can follow up with a phone call. But if you need to reach me right away, give me a call. If I can't deal with it, I'll let it go to voicemail. Kind of going back to that session we just followed, that was just earlier, in terms of scheduling your time, figuring out what works for you as a director of a for me as publisher and managing editor, for a reporter, just directing their schedule. We have to measure our time and availability and kind of put times to return calls, time to open emails, things like that. So email is definitely best initially. I'll
say email is a follow-up email. Because even if you do call me, it's just like, I want to have the facts in front of me. I want to sit there and absorb them. And then I can follow up with you. But please do follow up with email if you don't get an initial email back. Like Margie said, where someone pitched her and then they followed up with more information. I get that all the time too. And it really does help. Or even if things get buried all the time, like just follow up. But we're not trying to ignore you intentionally.
I was going to say, I wanted to add something to the question you had before.
Let me ask about that follow-up.
And how to reach
I'm sorry,
you and
Diane.
how we respect and cultivate different sources. One thing that every source can do when any of us write a story about them or mention something that they're interested in, sharing it with other people in social media, in their personal contacts, in direct emails. Anything that gets more readers to any of our websites matters to us. And it matters to them too. That's a piece sometimes they don't always quite realize. Savvy people do realize that. The more attention they get on themselves and the subject of the story, the more readership there is, the more we look at those numbers. If we write a story about somebody and it gets less than 100 readers, chances are pretty good I'm probably not even going to go back to them again, because my goal is to get readers. And I think I'm speaking for all of us when I say that.
Definitely.
Completely.
Let me ask you ladies about follow-up, because there's a thing where you can, what's the proper way to follow up in terms of time, right? I've had instances where I get an initial email and then, maybe 2 hours later, I'll get a follow-up. And then the next day I'll get another email and a follow-up some hours after that. Talk to me about how
within a day. If you haven't heard
someone
from me
can
back in
properly
24
follow
hours,
up.
go ahead and give me a follow-up call or another email.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Maybe like 2 days, just in case it's like a really busy time. But yeah, like what you said, where people email like 2 hours later,
okay,
we're busy, and you guys are too. And so, yeah. And then when you do follow up, just be polite about it. I have people get kind of snarky, and then even if it's a great story, it makes me want to write about it less, just be kind to one another. But yeah, definitely a day. And then just follow up email. Like I said, I had one person email me and then called me immediately after saying, "Hey, I just emailed you." That's not necessary. We will see and we'll get to you, I promise.
I agree with that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. We talked a little bit earlier about, the things that are necessary for, a good contact email, what you're looking for. But let me dig a little deeper. What are the elements of a good story? And of course, it varies from publication to publication, editor to editor. But what are some things that, we talked about, having good pictures, things like that. But when we're talking about what really can make for
me,
a good story,
I guess I'll
what are
take
the
a
bones
step
of
into
that?
this. The subject matter matters. The people matter. The people being featured. Multiple sources are very helpful. Sometimes I urge my writers to ask the sources, who do you consider your competition? Who do you want to be when you grow up, kind of thing. Who's your role model in the community, or your mentor in the community? That can sometimes help put some meat on the bones of a story. The personal interest, conveying the personality, conveying for us, the solution to what is this solving in the community is very important.
Yeah, I think it sounds obvious, but just newsworthy things, I guess. So why we would care, just big happenings
Lauren,
in your
anything
company.
to add?
And then I think what Dan was talking about a little bit, where it's just a little bit of personality. So you can have a typical story. I read about Align, which is a cybersecurity company in Tampa, and they were expanding to a different country. And we were just talking a little bit, and it turns out he bought an old chocolate factory, and it was the first time it was used in 100 years. And that just takes the story so much more further than just they expanded. Now it's why they bought an old chocolate factory in Bulgaria. And people want to click on that a lot more than just the meat and potatoes, I guess. So just little details.
one thing I always look for is numbers, and don't be shy about your numbers. You know, if
Margie,
you say you're hiring
Mm-hmm.
employees, how many are you hiring? If you raised capital, how much capital did you raise? We're writing for other business readers, and those are the questions they're going to ask. And if we're not able to answer those questions, we're not fully telling your story for the people you want to get to.
Okay. Oh, all right. So what are there any stories you or your outlets are really interested in right now? Seems like everything is COVID or COVID related. So talk to me, if you can, about some of the things
I think
that,
besides
topic
COVID
subjects
and rebound
that
and
you're really
recovery of
focused in on
COVID,
right
which
now.
is still months, I think, and maybe even a year away, a lot of equity issues have come to light, particularly in recent months. The Black Lives Matter movement, the Tampa Bay partnerships study on inequities that exist in housing and education and wages, earnings, etc. Those are big, important stories for our community, and not just for the people directly affected by having personally experienced inequities. These are big issues for our community. The more that we can raise up all people, the better living is, the better our community is, the better our children and grandchildren will have experiences in their neighborhoods, in their work environment, in school, etc. So I think equity issues are probably the most important issue out there, and that it is also relevant in terms of COVID.
Yeah, it's tough to follow that up. I absolutely agree 100%. And I do think, I think we all do a pretty good job in general and beforehand
Lauren, anything to
featuring
add?
people of color and talking about these issues. But I think it is more important than ever. But just going off a little bit of that, I think money is always a really big thing, especially now. People want to know with PPP loans how they can capitalize that on the best. With funding rounds, is are still happening. And then just stories kind of how you're moving on from COVID. So I think for a long time, it was just like, how are you handling this? And now it's, what are you going to do in the future? I've done a couple of stories recently where people have pivoted completely, and one person even shut down their startup and started a completely new one. And people love that story just because it shows kind of this resilience that Tampa Bay has, and it does really well. And so just telling stories of that, but also not being afraid to share stories of failure. I think right now, no one's really failing. If your business shuts down, that's not a failure. There's literally a pandemic happening. And so just sharing like, hey, these things do happen. It's going to be okay. I think those are just as important as like the fluffy feel-good features.
I think Diane and Lauren covered it pretty well. I have a personal interest in
Margie?
Both racial and gender equity stories, and I'm really interested. There's been a lot of focus on women on corporate boards and in C-suites, and that's just something that really will always catch my attention, as well as people of color in those positions as well.
I think another issue for all of us is the demise of media generally and traditional media generally. So I think that we have to enter into a different kind of mindset of a collaboration more so than competition. We're all kind of in this together in terms of the future of the media as well. So I've been having conversations with different potential media partners about how we could even tackle huge subjects like equity issues together rather than thinking of ourselves as competitors.
Interesting point, Diane. Well, let me ask, how can businesses support your outlets?
Sure.
What are you looking for in those partnerships?
Diane brought up earlier to share our stories.
Margie,
so that's one very important way that you can support. Actually read the story, not just the headline. Actually go ahead and click on the story and then share it. And then on St. Pete Catalyst, we do have a section called Partner Stories. And this is an opportunity for a fee, businesses can tell their own story. It doesn't replace a news story. We're still going to write a news story if it's newsworthy, but a business can write and tell its own story in its own words. and we'll publish that and feature that on our platform as well.
Yeah, really simple things that Margie and Dane were talking about, sharing our stories, reading our stories, that's all free. And so
Lauren,
feel free to do that and tag us in them. A lot of people have shared my stories like on LinkedIn, and then someone else will reach out and say, hey, I have a story for you as well. And so it just helps like multiple avenues for us. And then with Tampa Bay Inno, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Ebony talked about that earlier. It's tampabayinno.com. And with the Business Journal, subscribe if you are able to financially do so. I think it's definitely worth it. And it does cost money to keep this going, and journalism does need money in it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything they said. Subscriptions are huge. Make sure your employees
very true.
subscribe.
Diane.
Reach out to your contacts. Tell people, hey, this is a really good source of information. Please subscribe. Share our stories in other outlets where you get your news and information, wherever that might be. Each of us has a different sort of revenue model. So some are paid subscriptions, some are what I think Margie called partner stories. We do something similar. We call it partner content. We've done that, since we started. Very few of our stories are like that, but we're happy to share a story. We do charge for that as well. We have a little bit of a different underwriting model, similar in terms of public broadcasting. I came out of WUSF, so I understand that model. So we work with key stakeholders in the community to underwrite stories that they value. So for example, we work with the Tampa Downtown Partnership to do stories about the Tampa downtown area. So we're picking the stories, we're deciding whether they're worth a brief or a feature or have photos or whatever. We're controlling all the content, but by the nature of underwriting, they're saying these stories are stories we value, and they underwrite those stories. They pay us to write stories about downtown Tampa, as an example. Absolutely.
Okay. Which is completely different from, what I'm used to when I first entered the business some years ago.
When we started 12
it's all,
years ago, now there's a ton of models of this around the country. And
I was going to add that, yes, that there's no one from the Times on this, Tampa Bay Times on this panel, but the Tampa Bay Times is also doing underwriting. They've got a huge foundation from the Foundation for a Healthy St. Petersburg, a huge grant from the Foundation for a Healthy St. Petersburg, and they're underwriting stories about equity for the Times.
Okay.
Yeah, things that were unheard of, just even 5 years ago, maybe for, a mainstream publication to be, having that kind of partnership with a community foundation to do that kind of work. It's pretty awesome, though. We've got some questions piling up in the chat, but before we get to that, very quickly, are advertorials things that businesses should plan for as advertising continues to shift? This is kind of continuing the conversation that we're having. The old models have kind of all, been tossed to the side, and, there's this new way of doing business. Should, advertorials be considered
advertorials?
part
I
of
think
that
of
plan?
that kind of as similar to partner content.
Lauren?
So in that way, certainly, I think we all appreciate that. And in my experience looking at like Google Analytics in terms of readership, I don't see a huge difference between partner content and what we write in terms of the number of readers it attracts. It really is more dependent on the subject, what they have to say, what the content of the story is, than the label partner content or feature writing.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me get to the questions here in the chat. I'm sorry, Ebony.
Now,
did you want to
upvote your favorite questions, because we really have time for like 4, and I see that there's not many people so you need to go and upvote them. Can you run through the top 4? And then we'll run through bringing up 2 of our companies that want to pitch.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, let me dive right in here. So the first question is from Bill Quigley. He would like to know, is there a repository where you can, folks can submit their press releases where you can pick it up? Or do you prefer, or is it set up for you that press releases go directly to you or your publication?
At gmail.com, or me personally, diane.egner@gmail.com. Or reach out to our writers if you know them.
Yeah. You're much more likely to get my attention if you just email me directly, Margie, Margie, at stpcatalyst.com.
Yeah, but to answer Bill's question, there is like repositories that take press releases, like PR Newswire is a big one I think we all check. There was like Tampa Bay Newswire and press releases. So there are places you can put them and that we will find them eventually. But to get it a lot faster, yeah, just email us directly. And will you put our like information out there for everyone to see after? Ebony or Kenya? Okay.
Yes, I believe you should be able to. Yes. Okay. Veronica Lane wants to know, if you're not a brick and mortar business, do you
doesn't matter.
Avoid those
I think
types of
coronavirus is proved like it doesn't really matter where you work, as long as thing is if you do it full time, then we'll worry about you. If it's a part-time gig, that maybe build it up a little bit and then call me. But yeah, brick and mortar doesn't make a difference to me.
It doesn't to me either. And one unique thing St. Pete Catalyst does is we have a feature called The Hustle. So if you're just doing a startup part-time, we'll write about that too.
Same here. Often part-times lead to full-times. They can be some of the most creative, innovative stories out there.
Okay.
So,
Robert,
yeah, we're totally open to that.
Okay. Robert Blackledge wants to know, will you let a lead know if they provided you with good content? My thinking is absolutely, but
to a story when it's published,
your thoughts, ladies?
Sources and anybody I think might be interested.
I always believe in saying thank you. And if I don't send you a link to the story, it's just simply that sometimes I'm overwhelmed with too much to do. Mm-hmm. And I hope that you would kind of be a fan enough of the site that you would check it on your own. But I always believe in saying thank you.
Okay. And Connor Storch wants to know, are reporters an endangered species with social media now allowing folks to broadcast and, pretty much do their own thing in terms of news? I think
all things are cyclical.
This is a pretty big deal within the journalism industry, but your thoughts, ladies?
Period right now and have been for, shall I say, since 2016. But hopefully things are going to turn around a bit in the future. I think as people realize that they need credible sources. If you haven't seen the documentary Social Dilemma, I recommend it to you. People really need and value legitimate news sources, and there's so many so many manipulative groups going on out there that are trying to persuade people of things without offering a reality check on if it sounds sensational and it sounds unreal, it probably is. But watch that Social Dilemma, and I think we're going to come back. My point is, I think we're in a dip right now. I think that we're going to come back, particularly when it comes to local news reporting. I've been in this business for over 4 decades now, and I've seen dips before, and I've seen peaks before, and I do think we're coming back.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks so much for your questions in the chat there.
And so
we're going to break right here to, I believe, do pitches, Ebony, am I correct?
Our friends at Lunchpool is going to bring him on up. But as we do so, I was laughing a little bit to myself at some of your responses, because I can just imagine you sitting on the other end getting these responses and thinking, well, what day, what time, where, why didn't you put this in there? And then as someone who has worked with all of you, I keep thinking, like, how was my email?
Yours are always good, Ebony.
Yeah, yours are top notch.
Yours are excellent.
I had to think about that as So I'm glad though with the responses, and you guys generated so many good questions. So I'm just waiting for Alex, and oh, I see that Ty is on stage. So we're just waiting for him to visually appear on stage.
Everybody.
There he goes.
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you guys and ladies.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
All right, Ty, you got 60 seconds. Let us hear it.
Ooh, on the spot. Okay. Well, hi, my name is Ty Calloway. I'm originally from New York. I've been in Tampa for a few years now. My app, which is currently under development, is called Relo. We basically are matching people who are moving to the same city based upon, whether it's an exact match, whether it's New York to Tampa or anywhere in the world to Tampa. We're pairing people together. We also match them with specific service provider needs, such as, if you need to find a local doctor, a local moving help, things like that. I find that there's nothing out there that's similar to it. A lot of people who basically seeing me post about the app, they're saying like, wow, this is a great idea. I wish I had it when I moved. So it's pretty much just a community platform that connects people together. As you know, relocating could be very difficult. It's expensive. It also, can affect you emotionally with anxiety and depression as well. So we're basically looking to attack that market to help people get connected and build like a supportive network that are moving to the Tampa area and don't know how to get connected, such as myself. It's good to have like a network of people that you can lean on for those particular needs.
Okay, ladies, any feedback for Ty?
So are you in beta, you said, or under development?
Yes. We're almost launching in our beta stage. I would say by next week.
Oh, wow.
We have about 300 people in our Facebook community that we build. So they're going to be the beta users, early adopters.
Oh, okay.
Ty, I would suggest reversing the order of your pitch. Start with the why. Tell me why people should get connected, and then tell me what you do.
Right. Yeah, sorry. I didn't know what time I was coming in, so it kind of just put me on the spot. So yeah, sorry. I was a bit nervous, but just wanted to give you the general idea of what, the Relo app is going to be for people, because there's a huge problem out there. A lot of people are looking to get connected when they relocate, but they just don't know how.
Yeah, tell me that and then tell me what you do. And that sounds like a great idea.
Right.
Are you dividing these into categories, like trying to connect people in healthcare or people in tech or people in the arts or anything like that? Or
Yes, we plan to do it by specific interests. On our MVP stage, we're basically real lean right now, so we're just focusing on people, connecting them by city. Once we scale up, get more users, we do plan to incorporate like the interests. Whether you're in the sports or tech or in the healthcare, you can pair up with and find other people based upon those specific needs.
Does it cost money? How do you monetize it?
For the end user, no, we plan to monetize for professionals. So basically, if the user joins and they say, hey, I need to find a local doctor that's recommended, the doctor pay us a small like monthly fee to be on our marketplace. So they'll get that lead and say they can be able to reach out to that user.
how is it different from, say, LinkedIn or on the local level, Alignable, some of those? What's unique about what you're doing?
Yeah, with LinkedIn, there's also Facebook groups. And of course, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Nextdoor app. Those specifically focus primarily on post-move or pre-move. With Relo, we're kind of basically focusing on the transitional process. People who are basically going from one city to the next in a matter of 90 days or less. That's what people normally do with Facebook. There's groups that cater to your moving, like there's Moving to Tampa group, which I'm a part of, but there's nothing specifically that deals with that in-between factor.
Is it just you right now, or do you have like a staff of people?
Yes, I'm the founder. I'm the sole founder. I've basically we launched as of January of this year, but I was able to find a software developer, a UX UI person, and 2 marketers. One handles press releases, so I think she'll be a big help with that because I had no clue how to handle that sort of aspect. So yeah, so right now we're a team of 5.
How do we
But it's all
find,
virtual. We're in different countries as well.
what's your URL?
Right now we have our community blog site. I can type it in the chat, but it's www.goreload.app. And you can check out our blog site. We're posting content on there for people to get some tips and resources, share their horror stories about relocating to a new area, things like that. You know, we want to make it fun and engaging as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ty, for giving us your story. We appreciate it. And Alex, let's go ahead and bring up our last person, David Horsewood. David is with Fire by Light Training, and we'll have him come to the stage. And I'm so glad that you gave that feedback, Margie, because I think it's very important for people to start with, whether they're pitching, whether they're sending you an email, start with the what is important. So, all right, David, you got 60 seconds. You ready?
Yes. Thank you, Ebony. Well, to begin with the why it's important, I remember in March of this year, I had to cancel a seminar because public things were just not happening, at least not face-to-face. And I took a couple of weeks to just be depressed. And as it turned into April, I started attending online events because everybody was just kind of forced online. Relatively quickly, a new term came into the vernacular, and it was called Zoom fatigue. And it's not just with Zoom, it's with Google Meet, and sadly, it's sometimes with Lunch Pool or other events where everybody just starts to feel like, I'm tired of looking at this screen. And one of the things that I realized is that people weren't coming across as well as they could through really no fault of their own. As little as 6 months ago, nobody thought that being able to engage through a webcam and a laptop screen was an essential skill. And now it's the only thing most of us are doing, at least when we're engaging with others. So I started doing something new. I started booking online virtual training sessions of 60 or 90 minutes where I only work with one other person at a time. I provide real-time feedback on how to be more engaging, more inspiring, more convincing, more persuasive. I help people better tell their stories so that they can get investment dollars or buyers or donators, whatever the case may be. The nonprofits are really getting killed right now because they're just not equipped to engage and inspire online. So that's what we do at Fire by Light Training. We work with people one-on-one who want to get better at what I call the new essential skill, which is engaging through a webcam and a laptop screen.
Any questions, ladies?
Is this in addition to your regular job, or have you started a new business doing this?
Well, I've owned my own training company for several years. This one-on-one virtual coaching is a new thing. And since it's the main thing people want right now, it's almost the only thing I'm doing. I do some other things as well, though. I do webinars. I do on-site training for folks who want it. But for now, because of the current market need, this is the main thing I'm focused on.
What makes you qualified for this? You come across as very charismatic on here, but I mean, like you said, it's a new thing. So how are you learning to teach others these skills, or what makes you qualified to do that?
Well, here's the main reason for that. While virtual is new for most people, they just haven't had to deal with it before. It's not new to people who've been trainers for a while. Virtual training, asynchronous training, synchronous training, distance learning, these are things that have been in my world for literally decades. And prior to that, even before being a trainer, I had a lot of on-camera experience, just as somebody who would do video production or as a television host or whatever the case may be. So I was able to pull from my previous career, but also just in the training world, while it's new for a lot of people to be on camera, it just isn't new for me. I've been doing this for a long time.
Got it.
How are you getting clients? How are you?
The main way is attending things like this, cold calling, going to online networking events, and obviously the one that everybody loves the most, word of mouth. So it's basically a combination of those things.
And are you based in the Tampa Bay area? I think I met you in a previous
Yes,
chat.
I am in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I love Tampa, by the way. I was telling somebody else earlier today, your Sheraton Sand Key Resort, which is not quite Tampa, but it's one of my favorite hotels in the country.
Okay. Well, thanks, David, for hopping on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time. I really am happy that you all were able to participate and do this again. You've always generated some great news coverage, whether it was right after the event or afterwards. You guys are always really good about being community first and Tampa first.